Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. It's Football at 4.
Football at 4 on a Friday here on 97.3 ESPN FM. Josh Hennick filling in for Mike Gill. And yes, the co-host of the Inside the Birds podcast joining us, NFL insider Adam Caplan. As the countdown is on to Eagles training camp. And they've been doing an incredible series with Greg Cosell, looking at the other teams in the NFC East. And Adam joins us now here on Football at 4 on a Friday. Adam, how you doing today?
Josh, I'm doing well. I hope you're doing well. Yeah, so it's going to be great. So we're doing our NFC East preview because that's the team it's the division the Eagles play in. And I know some people, we had like 2 or 3 complaints about. People are like, I don't understand it. Why are you talking about Washington? Well, they play your team twice.
Right.
So everyone else got it. The couple people backed us, and joined in. It was actually kind of comical. Oh, by the way, we're talking about our YouTube message board there, which a lot of people like to comment on. It's cool. It's fine. We also have the Facebook board, community group. But, yeah, so Monday we dropped the Giants, which was fun, on Thursday morning. And the last of our series, it worked out. The timing was perfect. 6 a.m. Eastern, no matter where you're listening to Josh and I today, because we know with your app for the station, people do listen outside our area. We drop it at 6 a.m. Eastern on every platform, including YouTube. It's an Eagles preview, and it's great. It couldn't work out any better. We didn't really set that up 2 months ago like that. It just, by the luck of the draw, it worked out that way. So we had the Eagles be the last team because they report, by the way, in 4 days, and the first practice is in 5 days, at the NovaCare complex, which they've been since 2013 when Chip Kelly took over. It was Chip's decision. I was actually working for the Eagles then. I do remember being so disappointed, Josh, that they were moving from Lehigh. Yeah, I'm one of those people who like to drive 90 minutes, or almost 90 minutes sometimes, to go to Lehigh. I love to get away, but no longer. I go to the NovaCare complex.
Well, in today's world, you can download the Inside the Birds podcast, have it for your drive. If you're coming down to the shore, you're going anywhere. So I encourage everyone. The Greg Cosell is always great, but listening to him talk to you guys about the other teams in the division is incredible stuff, and I'm looking forward to Monday's pod about the Eagles as well. Adam, you mentioned about covering camp. So you have Caplan's Eagles Training Camp All-Stars. This goes back to the mid-2000s. Talk a little about the criteria here, because you wanted to zero in on specific guys, and some of these names are incredible. Yeah,
so our Andrew Ducheco wrote a great story. Now, he only did Lehigh. I'm going back everything. Okay, that's something that I wanted to do, is go through my memory bank from Lehigh and NovaCare. But Andrew has a great list of. I'm going to talk about one player on Andrew's list, and I'm going to go to mine on offense and defense. And you'll like how I broke it up. But Philip Hunt was incredible. He was perfect for the wide nine. In fact, he was there with Jim Washburn when Washburn came in, and he came out of the CFL. Andrew listed he had 16 sacks in CFL, which is huge. Not only was he going to make the team, he was going to be the third end. What happened is he tore his ACL, and as I understand it, he was never the same. And that was a great job of scouting, though, because he was perfect for the wide nine. And I remember Andrew, Josh, Philip Hunt was going to be like my breakout player of the year as their third DN, but unfortunately he tore his knee up, and he was never the same. So that was a name that if you really follow the Eagles closely, I know there's some listening that are diehards that know the Eagles inside and out. They'll remember Philip Hunt coming out of University of Houston. And the Eagles had such high hopes for him because he was a perfect fit for their scheme. Because you don't have to be really big physically to play well in the wide nine, and because they always say you play the run on your way to the quarterback. But anyway, that was one memory. But my list, I'll start on offense. And again, I'm going back to the mid-2000s. And this guy now, up till now, obviously, through 2021. Now, my role is he had to be a fourth-round pick or lower, meaning fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, or undrafted free agent. They had him at a strong training camp, not make the team, but get cut, either make it or get cut, and never heard from again. But I love the one-hit wonders, and I'm going to get into some of them. But one of the one-hit wonders This is a guy, and I remember reporting on this, and you'll love this story, Josh. I've told this on Inside the Birds, but I didn't include everything, and this is stuff I'll include today. I actually had to block people because they were blaming me. I was going to training camp. I would put a little bit on Twitter about who stood out to me. And Henry Josie was unbelievable as an undrafted free agent in 2014. Chip Kelly did not have personnel control then. He had it in 15. But Josie was a training camp superstar. He was unbelievable. But the information I was getting was he was not going to make it because he had a bad knee. One of the knees was not great, and he wouldn't make it long term. They knew this coming in. And I don't remember who they kept, but people were so pissed. Josh, they were blaming me for hyping him up. I'm like, I didn't say he was going to make it. All I was saying is this is what I saw, and I told you why they cut him. I checked into it. They felt that the knee was going to be a problem. He never made it in the NFL. He went to CFL briefly, and that was the end of his career, so they got it right. But he was a training camp superstar if there ever was one. So that was one. And then this next guy, Josh, a running back on offense, okay? Let me just put it to you this way. There were five or six running backs in camp in 2017. This guy was one of them, and is an undrafted free agent, Corey Clement. And it was one of those situations, Josh, that I remember his agent calling me and telling me that he had heard he talked to the Eagles, and he said, "I'm just telling you, they said they're not. If he balls out, he'll make the team. If he does great." I was like, "All right, so you understand, he's got to beat out Donnell Pumphrey and some others there. I mean, he's got a long way to go. But listen, if they said if they tell you he's going to be on the team, if he deserves it, then take it to the bank. Then that's true." And that's what happened. And we all know, Super Bowl hero. And talking to the Eagles then, he was great in their offseason program, Josh. But because you're not in pads, you just don't know. He was great in training camp. Easily, in fact, after the first week of training camp, they all knew he was going to be on the team. But who knew, Josh, how great he would be. And he was a Super Bowl hero. They do not win the Super Bowl without him. We all know that.
No, absolutely. And I love the fact you brought him up again because, one of my favorite stories about him, I don't remember if it was you or Jeff told this previously on the Inside the Birds pod about how basically, Deuce Staley went to him. He's like, look, you come to camp with XYZ, you can make this team. And I know Corey Clement has mentioned in different interviews that, he really credits Deuce's mentorship for him even making the team.
Yeah, Jeff and I, Moshe and I did we had an event with Corey in 2018 in before training camp, I think. It's either before training camp or right after the season, or right after the preseason. I don't remember, but I do know this: he confirmed that he had knee surgery, and the problem with him is he just kept getting hurt. It was such a shame. In fact, we broke the news when he said it. We didn't know that. He just told us. I was like, "Oh, thanks, okay." And he was great, such a really nice guy. His dad's a big Philadelphia sports fan. He's from South Jersey, and unfortunately, Josh, he went to Dallas, the Giants. He was never the same. You see, actually, right now, he is not on a football team, and really, again, Super Bowl hero and an unbelievable story. And I got to give the Eagles credit there because remember, let me give you the backs who were in camp: Ryan Matthews, you remember. Although he would wind up retiring, I think. Darren Sproles, Wendell Smallwood, LeGarrette Blount, Byron Marshall was explosive, Donnell Pumphrey, and Corey Clement. He beat out Pumphrey for a role. They didn't cut Pumphrey till the next year. Byron Marshall, and it was kind of weird. Like they went with a committee. As Blount as a power back, Wendell Smallwood was sort of like the third back, Sproles third down before he got hurt. And then Clement's role grew after Sproles got hurt. And just and the thing about him was he was more of a power runner in college. No one knew he could catch the ball like that. It's a little bit more than I expect to talk about Corey Clement, but I just want people to understand how unlikely his story was. One of the best stories in, quite frankly, in Eagles history.
Adam Caplan, Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, InsideTheBirds.com. Another name on your list of Caplan's Eagles Camp All-Stars is a guy who was a part of the Eagles winning Super Bowl as well, the former quarterback turned tight end Trey Burton.
Yeah, this is interesting with Trey Burton. Signed as an undrafted free agent in 2014. Now, the problem with Burton was the reason why he wasn't drafted is he didn't block very well, and he was also undersized. He was more of a slot tight end. I mean, Selleck was the guy at tight end. He was winding down his career. He retired after 17, but they knew they kind of targeted him, the Chip Kelly group, because they wanted someone as what they call move tight end, Josh. This was a great signing. In fact, he was not only a superstar in training camp, he was really good. He made it rather easily at tight end, so that's my one tight end. I'm going to give you a couple more on offense. Now, one of these guys I know personally, Rasheed Bailey. I've known Rasheed since he was a rookie and undrafted free agent, and I've talked to Rasheed a lot about it. If you remember in 2015, he was the superstar. In fact, here's what happened. It came down to him or another player. He was like the 54th player, so to speak. The Chip Kelly told him not to go anywhere, stay in a hotel, stay in the area. We're going to bring him back, and they never brought him back. And to his credit, he's revived his career in the CFL. He's a CFL champ. He's one of the better receivers in the CFL. So the Eagles made a mistake that year. He was terrific. They could have used him for depth. He should have been on the practice squad. And then they brought him back some years later, but they cut him. But nevertheless, he's played in the CFL. But here, this is the guy now. The guy I'm going to mention before we go to defense, okay? This guy was traded up, if you remember, Billy McMullen. Remember Billy McMullen?
Mm-hmm, yep.
University of Virginia was a draft pick, mid-round pick, who was also a training camp superstar. He was traded up, straight up for Hank Baskett. Hank Baskett was incredible. It was one of these situations, I remember, they got him in 2006. Everyday spectacular catches where you're like, will this ever stop? Well, it would stop in the regular season, and then he only played a couple years for the Eagles. But he was one of these flash-in-the-pans where you scratch your head. Remember Nate Brown, similarly?
Sure.
But Nate Brown had terrible hands. Like he would flash, but he had trouble in the regular season. Where Hank Baskett, he just couldn't get open in the regular season. But in training camp, no one could cover him. So, real athletic, 6'3", 6'4". He was a training camp superstar who would never really make it long with the Eagles or in the NFL. But this is why I always call training camp in the off and preseason, AAA baseball, regular season, the major leagues. He couldn't hit the fastball.
Yeah, I mean, I'll never forget some of the stories. I mean, every training camp, you know how it is, Adam. The fans lose their minds about some of these guys, which leads me before we get to defense, I got to bring up the other name you have written down here, Paul Turner. Adam, I will never forget the fans screaming, "How can they cut Paul Turner?"
And I'll tell you why. I'm a truth teller. If you know me well enough,
yes, you are.
I'm willing to tell the truth when it happened. And I'm willing to take people screaming at me. So it's 2016 UDFA. I remember I said he would later go to New Orleans, but I had said then when it happened, he's not going to make it. He doesn't run very well. Yes, he catches everything, but they want more speed. This was Doug Peterson's first year. They lack speed. He's a pure possession receiver, had no juice at all. Nice kid. He definitely was great in training camp, but he didn't run well enough, and he never made it. And I get it. You just nailed it, Josh. Fans, and I get it. They attach on to a player who tears it up because the media gets good access. They're watching practice, and they're just reporting what they see. And sometimes the fans see it too, because now the fans don't get to go to training camp anymore unless it's an open practice at the Link for the one, and unless you're a season ticket holder, you could go to the Link, but you don't get to go a lot. But nevertheless, I mean, you get to go to NovaCare a little bit, but you don't get to go a lot. But nevertheless, Turner was terrific, but he just didn't run very well, and people were mad at me. Another guy that people came after you about, I didn't know what I was talking about. I just tell you what the team thinks. You could yell at me all you want. This is what they think. They know more than you and I do, and that's what happened.
Now, flipping over to defense, Adam, I love that you brought this guy's name up on your list because Destiny Veo was a guy, I felt like he just hung around the Eagles forever. It felt like every training camp, this guy was in the conversation once he proved himself to potentially make the team.
Yeah, Destiny Veo, I completely missed on him. Here's what happened. I was on my training camp tour. And by the way, mine starts next week. So on Inside the Birds, I'll be coming from a training camp when we tape those shows, and I'll give you a little intel on the teams that I visit, particularly if you play fantasy football. But anyway, I knew nothing about him. I just knew Veo was a undrafted free agent in 16. And it's one of these situations, I'm like, well, they have Fletcher Cox, Timmy Jernigan, Bo Allen, who was terrific. Elijah Qualls was a draftee in 17, and Justin Hamilton is still in the league, by the way, still bouncing around. But Vallejo they liked his play strength, and he made it. And it was also a cool name, Destiny. I never met anyone named Destiny. So he was on one of my favorite training camp names as well.
And, of course, the other guy on defense, we got to mention a guy who hung around with the Eagles for a while, James Madison's own Akeem Jordan.
Yeah. Oh, in 2007, another guy. The Eagles have this great. I have to. One of these days, maybe we'll talk. Maybe next week, Josh, when I'm on with you Tuesday. But the Eagles have this incredible history of finding these undrafted free agents. I know all teams try to do this, but it saves you so much money under the cap. And Akeem Jordan, he lasted a long time. He started a bunch of games. Yeah, he was a good UDFA in 2007. He superstar, very quiet guy. Surprised a lot of people. Yeah, he only not only did he make it, he was with them for a while. That was a really good one.
Now, on your favorite training camp names list, we mentioned Destiny Vallejo. How about Marvin McNutt from Iowa?
Yeah. I remember he was a tall possession receiver, couldn't run it on. He never made it, but McNutt, yeah, that was a good one. Okay, now don't give this away, but my quarterback, one of the all-time, because the guy must have been with 12 teams, he went by MBT, McLeod Bethel Thompson. That was just one of my favorite all-time names. He was a great one. Now, see, here's one for you. Chip Kelly's first year. And I remember being at training camp or OTAs, and he said, "Hey, Regis, come here." I'm like, "Regis? There's no Regis on my lineup card here." Aurelius Ben's nickname is Regis. I'm like, "Where are you getting this?" And he said that. All Chip said that's what he wants to be called. I'm like, "Okay." I was like, "All right, Regis it is." And then here's a great one. This guy's a really good special teams player, and he played with Ryan Matthews with the Chargers. Seyi Ajir Tutu. Yes, he was a tall special teams player who was with the Eagles in 2015. That's another training camp name which I absolutely loved.
Yeah, it's sad that I remember McLeod Bethel Thompson actually more for playing at UCLA than actually signed with the Eagles.
Is that where he went? Jeez, I don't even remember. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I remember it because UCLA's had a bunch of these guys with like 4 names in their names. I don't know if it's like a UCLA thing or not. Like, Chip Kelly's got the one guy, Dorney and Thompson Robinson over there now. It's ridiculous.
MBT. He was with a lot of teams. A couple more now. Okay, this is a family show, so I'm going to get the name right. Aziz Shatu. Yes, 2016. He played with Zach Ertz at Stanford. He's a tall guy, DN, who had positional versatility in terms of DN and D tackle, but he was with them for a couple cups of coffee. But it was one of these names is like you wanted to make sure to ask their PR staff how do you say the last name.
Right.
Because you don't want to get it wrong, of course. So that was one, Aziz Shatu. And then here's again, this is a long time ago, 2007. This is one I had to ask a 1,000 times. How do you pronounce Pago Tokafal? That's how you say it, Pago Tokafal. He was an undrafted free agent in 2007. Here's another one for you. A fifth rounder in 2009, Finoki Topu. And then, this one was funny because they had a kid named Chris Samp, and they had the immortal Bill Sampy, or Billy Sampy, depending on how you. It's just weird. Like, where did they get? Like, what are the chances they get? Name me another team in NFL history that had two guys around the same time with Samp or Sampy. A very underrated last names.
Oh, I absolutely love it. Adam, before I let you go, craziest training camp story ever.
All right, I'm going to do this one in 45 seconds. 2005, I'm at training camp, and it's a hot day. They weren't doing real 2 days then. It was one of those days where morning practice, afternoon walk with special teams or walkthrough. So I leave. I never go to special teams practice. I know the beat reporters go, some do. I'd never go. So I get a call on my cell phone. We had cell phones back in 2005. Hey, I was satellite, Sirius XM NFL radio, who I work for, and they called me and said, "Hey, are you a training? No, are you "Oh, you covering the story?" I'm like, "What story?" "About Terrell Owens leaving." I'm like, "What?" They said, "Oh yeah." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" "Oh yeah, he got thrown out of practice." I was like, "He did what?" So I got home, Josh. I just got home. You ever you want to pick up food or you do something like you forget something?
Mm-hmm.
You're like, I don't want to go back. You're half an hour away, but you know you have to because you have to have it to make a meal or whatever if you're baking.
Right.
I was like, I have to go back. It's a huge story. So I drove an hour and 15, hour and 20, and all I did is go. I asked around. I called. It's funny because the first time I had to think about it. Wait a minute. Did I go back? And at first I thought I didn't, and then I remembered I did go back because I remember who I ran into to give me the 411 and what happened. I missed everything, and then of course I didn't go to Owen's house and for Drew Rosenhaus's next question. That was one of the most bizarre days of my career. I'll never forget it because nobody knew what the hell was going on until later in the day, and they didn't understand why I got thrown out. And it was just, you couldn't make it up. And I've always said this, that this would have been the best receiver-quarterback tandems in NFL history if Owens didn't go off the rails. It's too bad.
It was absolutely a wild time. I'll never forget it. He's Adam Caplan, NFL insider. Check out the latest edition of the Inside the Birds podcast with Greg Cosell. And the next episode dropping Monday morning, 6 a.m., wherever you get your podcast, as well as the Inside the Birds YouTube channel. Adam, great stuff today.
Thanks, man. See ya.
Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN FM. Yeah, the Greg Cosell series is absolutely incredible. I encourage everyone, download it. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, wherever you get your podcasts. Absolutely incredible insights from Greg Cosell on the Eagles' rivals. Then Monday, they will break down the Eagles one more time before training camp on Tuesday is when the Eagles are back at the NovaCare Center in full force.